There is a hunger in all of us that no food can satisfy, a thirst that no drink can quench. We wake each day and chase pleasure, security, belonging. But beneath the chase is a question we rarely ask. What is it we are truly starving for? In the heart of the jungle, where no map dares trace, a man once sat beneath a tree, not to escape the world, but to face it, naked, raw, and without a single bite of food. This is not a tale of asceticism, not martyrdom, not religion. It is the silence that swallowed the self, the stillness that shattered illusion, a journey not through space, but through the marrow of being. Siddhartha, once a prince, once a seeker, now only breath and bone. 49 days without food, 49 nights without movement, 49 lifetimes lived in a single gaze inward. The Bodhi tree did not bloom because of him. It had always been there, as silent witness, as mirror, as companion. The man beneath it was vanishing. Each day, the body wept its weight into the soil. Ribs like silent xylophones beneath skin, stretched thin, veins like dried riverbeds. The stomach, a cavern, echoing with nothing. And still, he did not move. For he was not starving to die. He was starving to dissolve, to feel every clutching ghost within him scream and not obey, to let the mind dance its madness and not join, to see through it all and still remain unmoved. Temptation came first, as it always does, not as demons, not as flames, but as thoughts sweet as honey. Eat just one fruit, just a sip. You can try again tomorrow. But tomorrow is how we avoid forever. And Siddhartha knew, truth is not found in postponement. Then came fear. Not the fear of death, but the fear that none of this means anything. What if you're wrong? It hissed. What if this path leads nowhere? Doubt is the last veil of ego. It sounds like caution, but it guards the illusion of control. The jungle around him pulsed with life. Monkeys screamed their chaos. Insects sang in unrelenting swarms. Snakes slid silently through the underbrush. But inside the man, there was only one sound, the slow, rhythmic thunder of a heart remembering how to listen. On the 7th day, Mara came, not as monster but as mirror. Mara is not a being. He is every whisper of distraction, every story the mind tells to avoid now. He is desire wrapped in silk. He is comfort disguised as wisdom. He said, "You have gone too far. This path is madness. Come back. Be human. Rule the world you were born to." But power is only needed when we have forgotten our true nature. Siddhartha said nothing. He looked at Mara as one looks at their own reflection in a trembling pool. And Mara vanished into wind. The body screamed now, bones grinding in their sockets, skin like parchment, breath like a frayed thread. The hunger was no longer physical. It was the hunger of identity unraveling. Who am I without wanting? Who am I without memory? Who am I if I do not react? Each moment became a blade, not to harm, but to cut away all that was not true. Memories, dreams, fears, they rose like smoke and drifted away. He saw lifetimes, not as stories, but as patterns. Desire birthing suffering, attachment birthing fear. Again and again, the wheel spun. And in this seeing, there was no judgment, only compassion, the kind that rises when all masks have fallen. Stillness, not the stillness of inaction, but the stillness of complete awareness. Every breeze on the skin, every ant crawling across his foot, every heartbeat, sacred, empty. Time dissolved. There was no dawn, no dusk, no day 12 or night, only the eternal now, stretching like sky, deep as ocean, still as stone. And in that now, a quiet began to bloom, not the quiet of silence, but the quiet of understanding. The quiet grew louder than thunder. It was not empty. It was full. Full of presence. Full of awareness. So vast, it could hold galaxies without trembling. And yet, within that vastness, the ego stirred again. A flicker. A shadow. The last whisper of a... The voice returned. Softer now, but more cunning. You've come so far. You must be special. You must be close to becoming something more than man. But even that, the desire to be free, is still desire. And desire, even dressed in robes of gold, is the thread that binds us to illusion. So Siddhartha looked, not away, but into the heart of that voice. And what he saw was this. There is no self to liberate, no crown to wear, no final prize. Only the shedding of layers, of labels, of longing. He saw the I, not as enemy, but as echo, a sound born of habit, not of truth. And in that moment, something within him broke, not with violence, but like a cocoon, finally too thin to contain the wings forming inside. The man was empty now, not hollow, but open. He had not conquered the world. He had dissolved into it. Even the stars seemed to pause in their dance. The leaves above him stopped rustling. The wind bowed in reverence. And yet, the world went on, as it always had. But the man beneath the tree, he was no longer seeking, no longer resisting, no longer becoming. He simply was. This is what the scriptures could never capture. What no sermon can preach. That awakening is not a peak to climb. It is the falling away of all things that are not real. No lightning cracked the sky. No angels sang. No voice declared, "This is the Buddha." It was quieter than death, more subtle than breath. The moment truth was no longer an idea, but a living presence. He saw suffering, not as punishment, but as a teacher that never gives up. He saw fear, not as enemy, but as a signal that something false is about to fall away. He saw all being, even those who hated him, as himself, in different forms, wearing different costumes in the theater of karma. And he wept, not from sadness, but from the unbearable beauty of a world that was never broken. Only his tears fell onto the dirt, and in that sacred earth, seeds of compassion were planted that would one day feed millions. The hunger was gone, not because the stomach was full, but because the soul had remembered its source. Mara returned one last time. He said, "Who do you think you are to claim such peace in a world so full of pain?" And Siddhartha smiled, not with pride, but with the gentleness of someone who no longer needs to argue. "I am no one," he said, "and in that, I am everything." Mara screamed, not with sound, but with silence collapsing on itself. And he vanished, not defeated, but understood. You see, demons do not die by war. They dissolve when the illusion that created them is no longer fed. Siddhartha opened his eyes, not as prince, not as seeker, not even as man, but as presence, as mirror, as the still point in the turning world. And though the body was weak, the light that shone from him was stronger than any army. It needed no followers, no name, no scripture. It simply was, like fire, like sky, like love that asks for nothing. And in this way, after 49 days, without food, without movement, without escape, the final trial was not passed, but surrendered to. He did not become the Buddha. He remembered he had never been anything else. The sun rose, but the man beneath the tree did not move, not out of discipline, but because there was no longer a mover. Wind passed through him as though he were air. Light fell on him as though he were sky, and the earth, so patient in its turning, recognized its own stillness in him. He did not rejoice. He did not speak, for what had happened was not a celebration. It was a vanishing. Siddhartha, the seeker of truths, was gone. What remained was the seeing itself, a mind like a calm lake, so still that stars could reflect in it, clear and unbroken. And from this stillness, then something unexpected bloomed, not detachment, but love, not the grasping kind, not the transactional warmth of I love you if, but the kind of love that does not need a name, the kind of love that a mountain gives to the sky, the kind of love that simply shines, not because it tries, but because it cannot help it. Compassion, born not from obligation, but from direct seeing, that all suffering, all hatred, all confusion, all grief is simply a forgetting. And so he sat, not as a conqueror, but as a mirror, reflecting all things as they are. The ants crawling over his feet were holy, the cry of a bird in the canopy above, a sacred hymn. Even the rot of decay in the jungle air was not decay at all, but transformation. He saw now. Nothing dies. Everything changes shape. Form rises. Form falls. But essence, that quiet, radiant awareness beneath all things, remains untouched. He had no more fear of death, for he had tasted a deeper death, the death of the self. And in that death, he found a life so vast that even the cosmos could barely contain it. There was no desire left to teach, no plan to found a religion, no vision of temples or chants or robes, only silence, only being. But the world would not leave him there. Word spread, not in stories, but in the silent language that only truth can speak, that somewhere in the jungle, a man had touched something eternal. People came, the curious, the desperate, the broken, the proud, and still he did not speak. For what could he say? What words could carry this thunderous stillness? But then a child arrived, a child with eyes too wide for lies. She did not ask questions. She simply sat, breathing beside him, and in her breath he felt the turning of the wheel. He saw the world again through innocent eyes. And so he rose slowly, like a mountain, remembering it can walk, not to preach, not to perform, but to give away what cannot be given. The Dharma, not as dogma, not as belief, but as a whisper, a compass, a reflection. He did not say, follow me. He said, look within. He did not say, obey this. He said, observe that. He did not say, renounce the world. He said, see it clearly, and the craving will fall away on its own. And as he walked, he carried nothing. No banner, no bowl, just the emptiness that gave birth to everything. This is the final trial, not the starvation, not the confrontation with demon, not even the ego's death, but this, to return to the world, with no self to protect, no mission to fulfill, only the quiet burning light. Every being is itself. And so he walked, through palaces and ash heaps, through the eyes of kings and the eyes of thieves. Everywhere he went, the truth was the same. This suffering, this fear, this longing is not who you are. You are the awareness, watching it all arise and pass. The sky, not the storm. No scriptures were written that day beneath the Bodhi tree. No chorus of gods, no sacred flames. Only a man, thin as shadow, was smiling at the rising sun. He did not become immortal. He did not transcend the earth. He became more mortal than ever, so deeply human. He burned with divinity, not the divinity of heavens and halos, but the sacredness of now. This breath, this body, this moment. The jungle, once feared for its wildness, had become his teacher. The vines, the flies, the rotting leaves, all speaking the same Dharma. Nothing is separate, nothing is permanent, and nothing, not even suffering, needs to be resisted. He had stared into death and found not a monster, but a door. He had starved the body to feed the soul until there was no difference between the two. And now he moved without movement. spoke without words, taught without teaching. People would gather at his feet and ask, "Are you a god?" "No," he said. "Then are you a prophet?" "No." "Then what are you?" And he would reply, with the silence of a mountain breeze, "I am awake." That is all. Not a title, not a boast, a description. He had not gained anything. He had lost everything, except awareness. And that awareness radiated not like lightning, but like still water under moonlight, gentle, steady, unshakable. He taught, not from theory, but from what he had lived, that liberation is not found in the next world, but in this one, when clinging ceases. That enlightenment is not a state to attain, but a truth to uncover.
You are not the storm.
You are the sky. It moves through. He taught that Mara will always return. Even after awakening, the mind will whisper its fears. But now, he smiled at Mara like an old friend. For once you've seen through illusion, you do not need to fight it. You just stop believing it. The 49 days were over, but the real journey had just begun. Not for him, but for us. For those who still hunger, still chase, still believe that something out there will make the ache go away. His gift was not a path to follow, but a mirror to hold up to ourselves, to say, "Look, everything you seek, peace, joy, freedom, was never missing, only hidden beneath the noise you mistake for truth." So sit, not to become holy, not to gain wisdom, just to be still, to starve the mind's appetite for drama, for identity, for endless becoming. Sit until you forget your name, until desire loses its grip, until time dissolves, until all that remains is this: breath, stillness, awareness. And when you rise, do not speak of what you've seen. Let your presence speak it for you. Let your actions carry it. Let your love be so quiet it thunders. This was his final trial, and he passed it, not by winning, but by surrendering, by disappearing so fully that what remained was not a man, but a way, not a doctrine, but a possibility. That anyone who dares to face themselves completely can awaken. Not one day, not someday, but now, in this breath, in this silence, in this sacred, unrepeatable moment of being alive. And when you are ready, not to seek, but to stop seeking, you too will find what he found, not beneath a tree, but beneath all that you are not. And in that stillness, you will hear it, the same truth that moved through him, now moving through you. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not you are simply awakening.